So one issue they're dealing with in a place like Chicago and states like Illinois, where you're in blue states, especially deeply blue Democrat-controlled cities and states, is that they, this cashless bail system, so that these protesters, as long as they aren't really violent, and there's a line between like resisting arrest and becoming violently resisting arrest, but that people like that, if you're resisting arrest, you're like blocking traffic, that they may get handcuffed, but then they're just going to get a citation. They're not going to be like actually taken in and photographed and go through the whole process of being, in prison and bailed out.
Yep.
And then so basically they'll be back on the street immediately. Yeah. So it won't be like, the bad actors are taken out on day one, because they're going to get right out unless what they did was really bad. And then they're also talking about, like bio attacks. That's not protesting. That's just terrorism. So that distinction. And I want to show some of the footage just so we could see kind of a glimpse of what they're preparing for. This is in New York City. This was an event that Harris and Walz weren't at, but the governor of New York, Hochul, and the mayor of New York were at in Harlem. And these Palestinian protesters there, basically, the news described it as 36. They caused a lot of damage. It was at a restaurant. Again, you didn't have the same kind of security that you would if you had executive branch, a vice president there running for president. But there was security there because they had a governor there and the mayor of New York. And they broke through. It wasn't just to protest outside. It was trying to get inside. They caused damage to the restaurant. And again, if that's it's kind of a small-scale version of what Chicago's about to deal with, and they're clearing out courtrooms to be able to process these people very quickly, I think this is when the left kind of has to take its own medicine. When you have those laws on the books that may make sense generally, that something is such a low-level offense that we don't want to back up our court system, especially in a place like Chicago where you've got...
Go to a little folding table.
Yeah, where you've got a lot of violent crime going on.
Yeah.
That if it's not real violent crime, that, you let people out. Except for in this case, if you've got hundreds of thousands of people protesting in the streets and you keep letting the people out who are kind of the agitators each day, they don't mind that. They love the fact of the imagery of them getting arrested. Then they're back on the streets and they get to do their thing. And then, these are just basically fines that they ultimately may have to pay. No jail time. They're not going to be booked like jail time either. They get citations. So I think that again, will be up to how the media wants to cover it. I mean, it's like all of this really comes down to how much time the media spends outside of the security perimeter. And does the security perimeter get breached? Now, if the security perimeter gets breached, that is a very dangerous situation, because that means DHS and Secret Service and FBI and all these different government agencies, even National Guard potentially, failed and weren't able to keep the area secure for the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, all these high-level officials and delegates. That, I don't think, is what people are saying yet in the news, but they are certainly kind of hinting that it may look insane.
Yeah.
And I always come down to this. Remember, these media outlets have been building up Kamala Harris. If they don't have to show it, I don't think they will.
No, so if it doesn't just go right, if it stays within the protest zone.
Them, like if they're not like, CNN was inside the perimeter, their whole like CNN compound.
Yeah.
So unless the protesters got through the security zone, CNN could show you just a peaceful.
Well, the question that was brought up in our meeting before this was, will it expand to actually members that are there?
Right.
Will the protest actually not be just random people on the streets,
but delegates?
Yeah,
and yet remember, these are the delegates who supported Harris. These were Joe Biden's delegates. So I mean, I don't know how many people in there are so radical, because to be that delegate, you had to be on that side. You're not Ilhan Omar. First of all, they support Walt. So what are they going to do? Why would they be protesting? I think that's where, again, you might see a few people. Occasionally it happens. It happened at the Republican convention when President Trump first ran. There was that move to try to take him out and put others forward. Sure. It wasn't violent. It was what sometimes happens on a convention floor, but it was certainly something you could show in the media. I'm sure conservative media will show these protests.
And the actual Democrat camp, the convention portion of this, the election portion, is over. Right? That all happened.
Right.
She's been selected. They'll probably do the role.
They'll do the role.
So those people get their 2 seconds of screen time.
Exactly. And again, I have no problem with peaceful protest, even if it's on a large scale that takes, these people got permits, and I disagree completely with their positions, their anti-Semitism and their anti-Israel views. But at the same time, if they are following the law to get their permits, that's a very different kind of protest than chaos.
Yep.
Chaos to me is these are non-permitted individuals who show up to cause criminal
bombing,
conduct.
city burning.
Criminal conduct.
Yes.